Coming up next on Hands on Windows, we're going to take another look at accounts, not because a lot has changed in 23H2, but because something big has changed. One big thing, and it is a big thing. It's coming up next.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Thurrott. And this week, I wanted to take another look at accounts in Windows 11. You may recall we had kind of a fun episode a long time ago talking about the types of accounts and all that kind of stuff. I'm not going to go through that whole thing again, but just as a quick recap, when you think about accounts in Windows 11, and in fact, I'll just go to the accounts settings page here so we just have something to look at. There is your sign-in account, which is this thing here. And your sign-in account can be an online account, like a Microsoft account, or a Microsoft Work or School account, which is for commercial users. It can be an offline account, which we call a local account. It could be, if it's an online account, it could technically, no, I guess it would have to be managed. That's a managed account, right? There's some central authority that isn't you doing some form of management on the account. In the case of a Microsoft account, it's usually pretty light management, right? And you can customize things your own way. And then a local account is an unmanaged account. You could leave that thing without a password. You could leave your PC wide open to theft and data stealing and so forth. No problem. We also have this notion of permission levels. We've simplified things in recent versions of Windows. We basically just have administrator and standard accounts. The difference between the two is that an administrator account has the permissions to do things that are destructive, whether it's to the system itself or to other people's data on the computer, right? You can get into the other accounts. But Windows also has this really interesting thing right here, which is email and accounts. And to date, we have had these two sections. There's the one at the top. This is accounts used by email, calendars, and contacts. You can think of that as email accounts. I think that might be the simplest way to refer to this. And then there's accounts used by other apps. And the idea there is that when you download apps from the Microsoft Store, if you've signed into your computer with a Microsoft account, it's going to pass through that account authentication to those apps. And by default, you will run those apps as this user. But you can add other Microsoft accounts. In fact, you can add work or school accounts as well, although those accounts aren't as useful in this context. And you can choose to go into an app and say, actually, I want to run this app as some other user. So, for example, in this case, I have this account I've created for the book. Because I sign in with it, it has been placed into this area automatically. I could go here and add it again, I guess, if I wanted to use that with email, calendar, and contacts. Or I could add other accounts. Any number of accounts. In fact, email accounts to date have supported a wide range of account types, right? Gmail, Microsoft 365 accounts, Yahoo accounts, Apple ID accounts, and then POP and IMAP accounts just for email specifically. This always worked pretty well. Windows 8, Windows 10, and Windows 11 to date have had separate mail, calendar, and people apps for email, schedule, and contacts management, respectively. However, those apps are being deprecated. And in Windows 11 version 23H2, you can still run those apps temporarily, but there'll be a time in the next year where they are going away. Microsoft will remove them from your computer, and it will not make them available to you via the store. You have to use other apps. Now, obviously, to take that kind of a drastic step, Microsoft has an app to replace them. And it is approximately the 17th or 18th app named Outlook. We're going to look at that in a moment. There's some controversy around that app, and we will get to that for sure. But for now, the interesting thing is I've been updating my Windows 11 field guide for version 23H2. I've hit all the big topics already for the most part. Some of those big topics have actually evolved even since the release of 23H2. So I've had to update the chapter on Copilot a couple of times. I've had to update the chapter on widgets, and we're going to do a new episode of this podcast on widgets because of that, because that change is actually fairly profound. But tied to this deprecation of mail, calendar, and people, and the ascension, if you will, of the new Outlook app, this interface for email, calendar, and contacts, email accounts, does almost nothing anymore, because where this used to integrate deeply with Mail, Calendar, and People, it now integrates almost not at all with the new Outlook. So we can go into here, we can add our accounts. We could still use Mail, Calendar actually, so I'm going to say no to all that. I'm not going to do that. But I could add a bunch of accounts here. If I were to run Mail, each of those accounts would appear in that app automatically. And so the advice to date, and this dates back, I would say, literally 12 years, would be do all of your account management here and then just run the app. But that's not the way Outlook works, right? So the takeaway here, and it's a big change. It's a subtle change, and I think it's a change a lot of people might not have noticed. But app accounts still work. You can add, like I said, Microsoft account or work and school accounts here. This doesn't do anything. That could change, but as of this recording, there's no reason to do any account management here. You're going to want to do that inside the Outlook app. So let's take a look at that. All right. So this is confusing, like I said, on a number of levels. In fact, let's see if I have both Outlooks here. I probably do. No, I don't, actually. So this computer doesn't have it. But on many computers, if you search for Outlook and Thurrott, you'll actually see two versions of Outlook. So they've added this little new bit here, so you know that it's new. It's in the icon as well. The version that comes with the Office suite with Microsoft 365 subscriptions is just called Outlook. The icons are similar, but not identical. The old one doesn't say old. Depending on your needs and wants and the types of accounts you use, you might still want to use the old Outlook app. If you're a commercial Microsoft 365 subscriber, for example, your workplace or your school or organization uses Outlook, Exchange server, either on-prem or up in the cloud, you're going to want to use that app for now. Although you should know that eventually this app is also going to replace the old Outlook as well. That's years down the road. We don't have to worry about that today. But the Mail and Calendar deprecation in People is immediate. So that's happening right now. So if you've ever used a mail app, if you've ever used Outlook.com, right, this is going to look super familiar. It has the three main views you would expect, which Microsoft calls, of course, Calendar, People, and Mail. Calendar, the first two are obvious enough, Mail and Calendar. People is your contacts management. I don't think I have anything in here because this is a test account. Yeah. So the views work. I should click through so quickly. I'm sorry. The views work as expected, right? The app looks as expected, does most of the expected things. It's actually a web app if you're interested in that kind of thing. You get this simplified ribbon by default, which I like and prefer to the full ribbon. But you can actually turn on the classic ribbon. And in this case, if this doesn't look familiar to you, this is what the ribbon looks like in the classic Outlook desktop app. This gives me PTSD, so I'm going to turn that off. I don't like that. And I find this to be mostly clean and unobjectionable, with one big exception. If you pay for a Microsoft 365 subscription as a consumer, right, so you have Microsoft 365 Basic, which is the cheapest way to go. It's about $1.99 per month or $19.99 per year. One of the key benefits of that subscription is an ad-free Outlook experience. If you pay for Microsoft Family or Personal or 365 Family or Personal, same thing. I took this account off of my Microsoft 365 account just so I could show you the insidious ways in which ads can appear in this interface. Because when you look in your inbox here, these are all emails, except for this one here at the top. Now, I happen to be in Mexico as I'm recording this, so this is in Spanish. That's a little strange. And when you click on it, it goes to some horrible website, which I will quickly close. But that's an ad. And it says ad. It's subtle, but it does say ad. And here you have your choice to pay to get rid of that ad. You might also see kind of tower ads over here on the side. Let me see if I can see one by just opening up one of these terrible Microsoft emails. But no, nothing yet. But that will happen too. And so you get that kind of experience. So when I first ran this, it looked at my Microsoft account that I sign in with, which is the account that's configured, and asked me if I wanted to use that account, which I did. If I had gone into the email and app accounts, or email and accounts as they call it, and if I had added accounts here, if I had added a Microsoft account, another Microsoft account, it would have given me the option. It would have been there in a list, but it wouldn't have been configured, right? So when you add accounts to this interface, you have a way to go in and say, this is how I want to get the mail. This is, if it has mail, calendar, and contacts, you can say, oh, I just want to get email. I want to get it on this schedule, whatever it might be. I want to download this amount offline, et cetera, et cetera. The new Outlook app does not respect any of those configuration choices. So instead, what you have to do is actually go into the settings interface. And it's straightforward enough. In fact, it supports the same basic account types. I listed these earlier, but Microsoft 365 consumer and commercial, Gmail or Google Workspace commercial, that works as well. Yahoo, iCloud, which is the Apple ID, and it says IMAP, I guess not POP3, but I could type in an account here and configure that, and you would get 2 inboxes or a mixed inbox view. You can do all that kind of stuff. But the point here is that you have to do it from here. And likewise, as far as any settings related to the account, you do this inline in the app, which is a fairly normal way for an app to work, frankly, but it's different, than the system used to be. Beyond that, you get all the expected settings. The thing we're not seeing here is usually if you have a Microsoft 365 paid subscription of any kind, you would see a premium diamond kind of a thing, and you could get additional features thanks to your account, not just ad-free. So whether or not this rates as a major change in your book is going to depend very highly on where you are in life with email. I actually think that the Microsoft Outlook app, this new version, meets the needs of consumers better than the Mail, Calendar, and People apps. That said, it's not integrated as deeply with the system. That might change over time. I hope it does. If you are a Microsoft 365 commercial user, right, someone who uses the old Outlook in work, school, your organization, whatever it might be, this is a very controversial app. People don't like it. And Microsoft's been very clear about this. They're going to keep updating this app. They're going to add all the features that people want before they make the switch. There are some features that aren't going to move forward. If you're an old school Outlook user, you obviously know about PST files and all the kind of arcana that goes in there. There's an old kind of ActiveX based plugin system not coming forward, right? This is a modern app, and for a web app, I mean, honestly, to be fair to Microsoft, is fairly lightweight and I think decent. Like all connected online apps these days, there's some controversy as well on the back end. For some of the account types, Microsoft actually has to route email through a Microsoft server to provide you with certain features, right? And some people don't like that. So if that's the case, you're not going to want to use this app. Also, like a lot of online services, this is a web app, right? So Microsoft is tracking you in the background. They're selling that information to advertisers, just like they would if you used one of their web apps on a non-commercial account. So there is that bit as well. But this is unfortunately the modern web. I mean, this is how things work these days. If you're not, even in this case, you're paying for it, I guess. But if you're not paying for it, you know that you're the product, right? So unfortunately, that's a reality of the modern Outlook as well. Anywho, I don't know how many people out there use the account features I mentioned today. I suspect it isn't that many, but I feel obligated when I see something like this, that especially when it's something I feel like people don't understand very well, to point out these changes, because Microsoft doesn't really promote this stuff, but there are big changes going on under the hood with Windows these days, and because they're not promoting them, it's always fascinating when you stumble into one like this account change. So I hope you found this interesting. We will be back next Thursday with another episode. We have new episodes every Thursday. You can find out more at twit.tv/HOW. Thank you to everybody for watching. Especially thank you to Club Twit members. We appreciate you so much. See you next week.